You're very welcome along to the Matchbook Weekend Football Podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Hussey, joined by our usual duo of Mark O'Haire and Adrian Clarke. Adrian, people always joke about the unders and overs of Arsenal mentions. I don't want to be like that, but it was some game on Sunday. We were predicting a decent game, and what we got was surprising for me anyway. I didn't think Arsenal had that performance, similar to their performance against City, in them. So I was surprisingly, happily enough, shocked by that performance.
Yeah, it was good. It was so good at the ground. You know, great noise. Fans got really behind it. It was an excellent team performance, really was. And it's the blueprint, really. I think that and along with that City win at home is the blueprint for those big games. Going with the two central midfielders, Jorginho and Rice. Maybe going with two false nines. You know, in this game it was Havertz and Ødegaard. I can see that being replicated, actually. City away, obviously. Maybe some of the trickier away tests to come as well. So yeah, I think that was good for the league, and it was definitely good for us Gooners.
Yeah, Mark, have we got a bit of a title race this season, three ways?
Yeah, I would say so. City is still obviously the strong horses in that three-way race. They're at 1.66 to take the title, and I wouldn't be laying them. I still think they are the most likely winners. 2 points now adrift of Liverpool with a game in hand. Obviously, they still have to go to Anfield, but Arsenal still have to go to the Etihad too. So you expect those two games will be where the title may be won or lost for any of the three sides, really. But yeah, big win for Arsenal, obviously, stating the obvious. They'll be feeling very good about themselves after what's quite a difficult spell during December. Certainly the break in January seems to have done them good. I did think, as Adrian says, Liverpool really struggled to deal with the sort of twin false nine threat of Ødegaard and Havertz, who floated around the pitch and made good contributions. Not having that focal point of Gabriel Jesus, I think it kind of befuddled Van Dijk and Konate a little bit. They were confused for a lot of the parts, but just to bring you both down a peg or two, I just think Liverpool weren't at it at all. They really missed Dominic Szoboszlai in midfield. Conor Bradley, who'd been playing so well, had to withdraw from the squad. Got no Salah, no Nunes from the off as well. So when you're missing a couple of your real standout stars, and then a couple of your other standout stars, including Alisson, make some god-awful errors, it's your lucky day, really. And yeah, Arsenal were very, very good. It was nice to see them almost return to the side that we fell in love with last season as neutrals, kind of more of a kind of swashbuckling attacking unit, not the sort of controlled threat that we've seen more often than not this season. So in kind of conclusion, I haven't changed my ratings whatsoever based on last week. I think it was one of those days where Arsenal came to the party, performed, got the result, and Liverpool, unfortunately for them, were nowhere near at the races, really. But yeah, as Adrian says, it sets up the title race beautifully now, especially for us neutrals to potentially have three horses in the race. It looks like a good run in from here.
Yeah, temper your enthusiasm, Adrian Clarke and myself.
No Partey, no Jesus, no Timber. I mean, we've all got injuries. You know, it's about who turns up.
Well, hold on, Timber. I think Timber is going.
Timber's a nailed on start.
Finish the season.
All right, let's take Gabriel or Saliba or Declan Rice out of the team.
Well, we did last season.
Yeah, but we're not.
Yeah,
we're not talking. We're not. I don't think you can put Szoboszlai in that category. It's not like taking Van Dijk or Konate.
Well, no, Endo as well. I mean, Liverpool midfield.
Come on, Endo. I mean,
I think he's enormous. McAllister is not a holding midfielder. He's not a six. They need someone. They need someone better than that in that position, and I think they're exposed in that position against Arsenal. But
quick question on Liverpool, Mark. But yeah, before we move on, they've won only one game this season against the current top six. If that comment's correct, worrying trend. Perhaps they have City at Anfield, which obviously is going to be crucial in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I didn't know that, but I would also say that I think Liverpool have got most or majority of the most toughest games out of the way, bar that trip to City. I think they have got the easiest run in. I think, yeah.
Yeah, they'll have City at home. So yeah, it is all to play for. Looking forward to it. I just wanted to tee the guys up at the start and went back and forth there, but I did enjoy it overall. Some good points from everyone, I would say. 4 games to cover: Spurs, Brighton, Forest, Newcastle, West Ham, Arsenal, Aston Villa versus Manchester United. I would say quite a decent weekend of Premier League action. We'll do the best of the EFL Europe, long shots and bets. And before we get going, all we ask is do hit that like button on YouTube And if you have any questions for Mark and Adrian, we can get to them throughout the shows. Just leave a comment in our YouTube comments or reach out to myself or the Team Matchbook Twitter account. And again, we'll do our best to get back to you. Spurs, 185 favourites at home to Brighton, who are 4.1. The draw here is available at 4.5. Both teams to score, yes. 143. I don't know if it's been lower this season. Maybe. Asian handicap line. Brighton getting a 3/4 goal head start at 191. The total for this game, 3.5. The under, ever so slight favourite on 192. Mark, it's got 0-0 all written all over, hasn't it?
I can't believe this game's not on TV, to be honest. I think it's got all the makings of being something quite special, really. Not too surprising to see the goal line so short. To get over 3.5 goals at 2.02 might look very, very stingy for most people. And it is, I guess, borderline for me too. But sort of doing a bit more digging into this market, I have to be with the over. It's landed in 58% of Brighton games, 48% of Spurs matches. The two teams are averaging 365 and 348 goals per game. The recent head-to-head was a thrilling 4-2 in Brighton's favour. Brighton were the better of those two teams that day. Probably deserved to win a bit more comfortably. Spurs made a game of it in the last half hour or so. But if you look at their 46 league games so far this season, they've combined to score in 41 of those. 37 of those fixtures have seen both teams score as well. And quite often, these two teams are scoring not just ones, but twos and threes, really. I've spoken about Tottenham's exceptional output in the final third a few times now in recent weeks, and they're getting Son back from the Asian Cup. He's back on Thursday. Probably unlikely he starts. He may do, but just to have him back in and around the club will be a big boost. But under Postecoglou, Tottenham have scored at least twice in 18 of 23 league matches, which is the best hit rate of any team in the division. Incredible considering they lost Harry Kane in the summer and Postecoglou's a new coach in through the door. They scored at least twice in the last 8, but they've also conceded twice or more in 4 of the last 5, including 7 of their 10 matches against the top half as well this season. So we know Spurs' way under Postecoglou is to be aggressive, to be attacking. They've got some exceptional quality in forward areas, which is making that approach pay quite often. But I think Brighton will enjoy the extra spaces afforded to them just because Spurs are so aggressive, and they're not going to boss this match in the same manner they did at the Amex. But I think they'll be confident after that big win against a Palace team which was missing a number of their big stars or lost a few players to injury as well last weekend. Even so, Brighton did smash them up quite convincingly, especially in that opening half an hour or so. They forced Palace into huge pressure and mistakes and kind of reverted to that exciting, expansive, expressive style in possession, which similarly to Spurs kind of can lead to problems of their own too. And I do think they have problems kind of shutting up shop as well. So I think we've got two coaches who with an ideology to play forward-thinking football, to attack. Even when getting ahead, they look to score a second and third rather than sitting on what they've got. And I think we've also got two very, very informed Brazilian strikers on both sides. Richarlison now has 9 in his last 8, and João Pedro in 8 of his last 7. So I think both will be well serviced. And I think, fingers crossed, this game will escalate into an exciting shootout and look for a minimum of 4 goals or more. And there was a stat doing the rounds in midweek too about over 3.5 goals, which again kind of pushed me towards it. You've just highlighted it there actually too. If you backed over 3.5 goals in every Premier League game this season, you'd be making a plus 14.4% ROI, which is incredibly healthy for the Premier League and very, very impressive. So I'm not too put off by the price, but if you do want something a bit bigger, I think there's no problem in having a couple of darts at the correct score market. 2-2 is 12.5, 3-1 either way is a bigger price than that even. So you could easily have 3 or 4 stabs at the correct score market are really big prices here if you're expecting 4 goals or more, which I do believe could be on the cards. So yeah, my official selection here is over 3.5 goals at 2.02.
Okay, fascinating stat there on Macintosh. Thanks for that as well on YouTube. Adrian Clarke, take it away. It's a similar line, but I guess you're trying to pick a side here as well.
Yeah, I couldn't disagree with a word of what Mark said. He's used a lot of the data that I was going to bring into play as well. So, but I would lean towards Spurs here. Home advantage obviously counts, and they've been great at home, really, haven't they? They've won 8 of 11 in front of their own supporters. Brighton on the road, not so impressive, really. They've only won 3 of their 11 away games. And concerningly for Brighton, they do concede a lot of goals across the board. I think they've let in 23 across that 11, so it's around 2 a game. That's that's including sides that aren't anywhere near as attack-minded as Tottenham. Now, if they concede 2 at Spurs, they'll do well to win the game, won't they? And I think the chances are they might well lose the game. Spurs have scored 23 goals in their 11 games as well, so they're averaging at least 2 per game. And as Mark said, 8 in a row, home and away, they've bagged at least 2. So yeah, you would expect goals for sure. But I do think Tottenham on home turf will be slightly stronger. I also think that Tottenham have it within them to suffocate Brighton. I know that it didn't work well at the Amex, but for me, that would just rev them up even more. It was a pretty embarrassing defeat, that 4-2. I think they'll be very, very determined to put things right here. And I just remember Arsenal at home to Brighton not that long ago, and they pressed them so aggressively. And it really did suffocate the Seagulls, and De Zerbi's team didn't really have a way through. If they can't pass through that press and get through the lines, they can struggle. They end up knocking those longer passes, which can be hoovered up. So I think Spurs are tailor-made to do quite well against Brighton with that press because they're very good at it. But they've also got the excellent recovery pace now that Van der Ven and Romero are fit. So stylistically, I think it's a good match for Spurs. And I think, given how well they usually play on home turf, I'd give them the edge. I've gone quite conservative here. I probably should have gone Tottenham and over 2.5 goals, but just to be sure, my selection is Tottenham and over 1.5 goals. I mean, you can't see there being less than 2 goals in this game. You just can't see it. But it is odds against. This is 2.06 you can get on Spurs to win, which for me really is just like backing Spurs because over 1.5 feels like an absolute gimme here. So yeah, if you do think that they're the better team and more likely to win, then odds against is a decent price.
Yeah, very tough to decide between the two selections. Both appeal. I'm actually going to lean a little bit to Tottenham and over 1.5 goals, 2.06 marginally. But Mark's selection over 3.5 goals will be available along with all other selections on insights.matchbook.com. Let's go to Nottingham Forest versus Newcastle United. This is the Sky game at 5:30. Forest 3.5 underdogs at home. Newcastle available at 2.18. The draw is 3.85. Both teams to score, yes, 167, heavily favoured in that market. The Asian handicap line sees Forest get quarter of a goal start at 2.1, and the total here is 2.5, 176 for the over. Adrian, you touched on this last week, but you were a little bit surprised, maybe not completely, with Forest's approach at home to Arsenal. They didn't really sort of go after Arsenal at all. Are you expecting a different approach or the exact same here?
I think that there'll be, it is a good question. I think that they can't be as defensive because Newcastle aren't as strong in possession as Nottingham Forest. I think they'll have a little bit more of the ball. But if I were Nottingham Forest, and if I were Nuno, I would try and replicate that kind of strategy. I'd certainly be going for a relatively low block and to look to play on the counter. I just maybe want a little bit more of the ball than they had against Arsenal, which is pretty much nothing. And they've had the blueprint. They went to St James's at Christmas time and they won 3-1. And it was a masterclass really in counter-attacking football. They sat back, they frustrated Newcastle, and then they went bang on the break, 2-3 passes, and they're at them. Obviously, no Chris Wood, who scored a hat-trick in that game, but I do have Awoniyi fit now. Origi, who scored in the FA Cup in midweek as well. So they'll just look to repeat the trick, And I've got to say, a little bit like the last match, I think it's a good style match for Forest because Arsenal are used to playing against low blocks, same as City. Newcastle aren't really, and I think that they get more frustrated maybe than some of the more established bigger teams. For me, Newcastle are at their best when they're breaking, when there's a little bit of space for them to surge into. And you can bet your bottom dollar Forest are not going to give them very much space for them to run into. And of course, they've lost 2 of their best forward players, which I think is integral in regards to my selection, which is Nottingham Forest on the handicap plus half a goal. No Isak, no Anthony Gordon. And I think that they're 2 excellent players. Well, they're the 2 best attacking players, aren't they, this season? So that is a problem, I think, for Newcastle here. Going back to Forest, they scored at home to Arsenal, they scored at home to Villa, at home to Man United, at home to Brighton. They got 2 in 3 of those games as well. So they're worth a goal. I think they've only blanked twice at the City Ground this season, Forest. So they're always worth a goal on home turf. So to win this game, Newcastle United might need to score 2 or 3 goals, which I think might be beyond them without Isak, without Gordon, even though Barnes is back. There are vulnerabilities that Luton exposed when they put balls into the box. You know, Luton scoring 4 at St James's. I mean, that's brilliant. It's brilliant for the league. It's fantastic for Rob Edwards and the players. But Newcastle should not be conceding 4 goals at home to Luton. There's got to be something fundamentally that's fragile there. And you know, the balls put in the box, set pieces, etc. Luton destroyed them. Well, Forest have got Awani. He's very good in those kind of situations. He's got Gibbs White, who's got wonderful delivery. A few other big players as well. So, yeah, I give Forest a chance here. And even though they played in the Cup in midweek, went through on penalties after drawing with Bristol City, I think that might galvanise them. You know, they've gone through, they've set up a tie with Man United. There is enough recovery time. I just think, and they know it's a massive game, absolutely huge game for Nottingham Forest. For Newcastle, not so much. Their season's drifting, isn't it? A little bit, especially in the league. So, yeah, I think Nottingham Forest can be competitive here. At least get a draw, which would make us a winner. So it's Forest plus half a goal for me.
Okay, Forest plus half a goal or Forest double chance 183. Mark, I think that Anthony Gordon news is quite. I knew he was unlikely to play, but as Adrian touched on, it seems very unlikely now that he'll be playing. He's been probably Newcastle's best player this season.
Yeah, one of them obviously had a bit of a difficult spell after joining from Everton, trying to break into the side and make an impression. But he went away with the underage groups of England in the summer and was absolutely outstanding. And he's carried that form into the campaign now for Newcastle. He's been versatile, adaptable, led the line very well in Isak and Wilson's absence when required, and also been a big threat from out wide. But it's not just going forward, going back. He's got a great engine too, and he's been pivotal really. But yeah, missing Isak. I'm not sure on Wilson. I think Wilson might be due back for this, which is a bit of a bonus. Okay, but yeah, Joelinton is also absent, and I think there's a giant hole in midfield where Joelinton normally operates, and that they're struggling to replace him too. And I think it's quite telling now that it wasn't just the 4 goals against Luton. They've conceded 3 goals or more in 6 of the last 9. They've already conceded 37 goals this season, which is 4 more than last season's total across the whole campaign. So I absolutely think that Forest can hurt Newcastle here as well. But obviously, I think if Newcastle can reach the standards they set at Aston Villa not that long ago, where they were absolutely terrific, Forest will be in trouble. But that seems to be the anomaly of the Newcastle away days, because it's their only win away from home that isn't against Sheffield United. It was their first away win in 8 in the Premier League as well. So the sort of 2.1 to 2.2 prices we're getting on Newcastle to win this game do feel short here, especially considering they were kind of eviscerated really in the reverse game not that long ago when Chris Wood dominated them in a 3-1 win at St James's Park. Now, can they match those performance levels? Can they match that approach and carry out the game plan to the same manner? Possibly. You'd assume Newcastle will be a bit more wise to it this time around, but you know, the City ground, maybe not more recently, but has tended to be a tricky ground for away teams. So yeah, I also think Forest is perhaps a little bit more respect in the market than they're currently getting. Quite happy to have them on side with a half-goal start as well. Clearly, survival is the aim, but with a potential points penalty coming their way, they can't really afford to play for points. They have to be a bit more proactive. And I think Nuno's been perhaps a little bit torn between 2 lines of thought. Is he going to be the safety-first coach he was at Wolves, or is he going to release the shackles a little bit with Forest? And I think he's kind of gradually trying to find a balance between those 2 styles. So far this season, well, under his tutorship, they've been conceding a few too many goals. They tightened up a bit recently, especially against Bournemouth last week. But I thought going forward, they offer real threats with Awani leading the line, Morgan Gibbs-White playing in a number 10, 2 wide players. You got Yates and Dominguez in midfield, kind of the nice balance there between grit and pace and fitness levels and balance, if you like, more control and possession too. But the Forest just They could be a lot better if they can just finally kind of scratch the itch with their set piece defending. It's been their huge Achilles heel. Brentford and Bournemouth scored from dead ball situations in the last 2 weeks, and they're going to be put under pressure from Newcastle in that particular area. They've got the height and the delivery to cause them problems, but even still, I think Forest have more than enough to get something out of this game. And yeah, I think Eddie Howe is going to start feeling a bit of heat. He already is, really, for his in-game tactical nous. He was criticised quite heavily for the game last weekend, leaving Dan Burn on for 65 minutes, and he was getting skinned by Benny almost every other exchange, really. But he left him on for well over an hour. The game was almost up, really, before we brought Livramento on, and he was much more accomplished in the left-back position. So quite eager to see how he sets up for this game. But yeah, Forest with a half-goal start would be my selection.
Yeah, 183, double chance, or Newcastle plus half a goal, the selection for Mark and Adrian. Agreement on that game, but not necessarily agreement on the next one. West Ham versus Arsenal. We'll take a look at the betting that we currently have on matchbook.com. I see Mark smiling there. West Ham 6.4, Arsenal 158 favourites to draw 4.6. Both teams to score yes. Backable price, I guess, here at 182. The Asian handicap line sees West Ham get a 1-goal head start at the goal line, 2.5, 171 the over. Mark, I think Arsenal in this spot are potentially beatable. I'm just not sure West Ham are the right team, so make the case why taking them perhaps on the Asian handicap line is the way to go here.
I think this is a fascinating game because I think if you look at it logically without the betting markets, you expect Arsenal to win. Everyone will expect Arsenal to win. Arsenal are a better team than West Ham. My first school of thought here was to go down the route, which I think Adrian has actually selected, so I'm not going to reveal that. But that was my first inkling for this game. But it's also one of those games where I really would not be surprised to see Arsenal struggle or even not win, fail to win here. I wouldn't be surprised if West Ham won this game, put it that way. And to try and sort of paint the picture as to why that might be, well, it wasn't that long ago they went to the Emirates and bossed the game against Arsenal, shut them right down, scored, and looked pretty good. It's the second time this season Arsenal have struggled against David Moyes' West Ham. They did so in the Cup too, and I think they have got the potential in that side to be a thorn in Arsenal's side. Whether they'll be good enough to get the 3 points or not, I don't know. Whether they'll be good enough to get a share of the spoils, possibly not. But to get them on side with a 1.25 goal start means we don't need West Ham to win to make money. Arsenal can still win this game by a single goal, and we will make a half-stakes profit. And that really, really does appeal to me. West Ham are getting key players back fit and available again. I know Lucas Paquetá is still missing, and he is enormous to them. Without him, they've won just once in 9 games this season, and that was against Lincoln in the Carabao Cup, which isn't a great statistic for Hammer supporters. But I actually thought they played pretty well, actually played good United last week. The scoreline does not do them justice, really. I thought they put together some really good states of play, really, and just fell short, really, in the final third, and United were very clinical. But yeah, I think back at London Stadium, they'll be feeling quite good about themselves. They've been pretty strong there all season. And I think they can be competitive in this game, whereas the market thinks Arsenal win this game by 2 goals or more. And I don't think it's that black and white, to be honest. Arsenal's only win away from home by 2 goals or more this season in the Premier League came at Bournemouth during the early days of Iraola's tenure when he was still working things out. And, you know, it's not often Arsenal score twice away from home this season either. So, you know, even if they score just once, we're going to make some profit out of this game. And as long as Moyes doesn't do too many silly things with his team selection, obviously he's parachuted Calvin Phillips into the side, which has gone disastrously in the first match, and he came off the bench last week and made another error. Understandably, he's rusty. He's made 3 league starts in 18 months. But I think what they've got so far, or what they had before him, is good enough to be a thorn in Arsenal's side this weekend. So, yeah, I just think the beauty of this selection is we can get paid out if West Ham win. We get paid out of our West Ham draw. We also get paid out of Arsenal and he win this by 1 goal. So Arsenal need to win this by 2 or more, not to make money. And I think that's the position which really appeals to me rather than anything else.
Okay, West Ham plus 1/4, 174. That's half your stake on plus 1.0 and half your stake on West Ham plus 1.5. Adrian, I suppose, made the case a little bit more pro Arsenal, but I guess a lot of the stuff that Mark said you wouldn't necessarily disagree with as well.
No, I think it's a really good selection, actually. The prices for me are wrong. I think West Ham shouldn't be quite as long as they are in the market. I think they should be a bit shorter, a bit closer to Arsenal, but yeah, it is what it is, and I don't blame Mark for going down that route at all. I mean, there's a lot of scorelines there where you're in profit, aren't there? So yeah, I've gone for the more bog standard approach, I guess, and that's Arsenal to win and under 4.5 goals. They have been a different animal, I think, since the trip to Dubai. They needed that break big time, and they've come back re-energized, and I've really liked, pretty much everything about their last 3 performances. Really, really impressed me. And when you think about the season as a whole, and Arsenal have picked up a few defeats, of course, I think there's only really been one performance that's been a stinker, and that was Fulham away. The other ones, there are sort of caveats there, in terms of the defeats. The Newcastle defeat, big old caveat there. Villa, I think, incredibly unlucky not to get something out of that game. It's really, one game so far where Arsenal haven't showed up. So I'm confident that they'll come and play well. And they've lost twice to West Ham this season already. I just find it unimaginable that they lose three in a row against them. So that's in my thinking. I think there'll be a little bit of revenge there. And you'd like to think that they'll learn plenty. Mikel Arteta will learn plenty. Kind of would take slight exception with what Mark said about West Ham bossing that game at Emirates. I mean, it was where I was sat, it was shot after shot after shot. But I do understand where he's coming from. It was a great away performance, very resilient from West Ham, and they'll just try and do the same. They defended superbly, defended their box better than I've seen any team defend their box this season. And they'll look to replicate it. But I just think there's a bit more about Arsenal now. They caught Arsenal then at a tired, jaded time. And I feel there's a lot more sprightliness about the team, more movement, more energy, more aggression in everything they're doing. They're playing at a better tempo. And I think that's the key here. If Arsenal play at a good tempo, at a good clip, they will have too much for West Ham and they'll win the game. They won't run away with it. It's just David Moyes, and it's going to try and keep it cagey. But so under 4.5 and Arsenal to win is for me. One other reason really that's the sort of West Ham negative. I just don't think they've been that good lately. They drew, didn't they? Obviously, the absence of Paquetá is important. Drew at home to Brighton, weren't great. Drew at home to Bournemouth, should have probably lost. Drew at Sheffield United. No one draws at Sheffield United. And then they lost badly, didn't they? At Man United, albeit they had, I think, 22 shots in the game, but still lost 3-0. So I don't think this is the worst time to be playing West Ham. And I think Arsenal, who genuinely have a good record in this fixture, they've lost 1 of 15 away to West Ham in the league. They should be fine. They've won away from home under 4.5 goals 5 times already this season. I think they'll make it 6.
Okay, yeah. I think I'm going to take the bigger price, even more negative West Ham, as Adrian touched on at the end, rather than pro Arsenal. But Arsenal under 4.5 goals, popular bet to do on the matchup betting exchange, 2.0 for West Ham. Plus 1.25 goal is available currently at 174. The selection for Mark O'Haire. Final game, probably the game of the weekend in some ways, just given where these two teams are at. Manchester United all of a sudden on a positive trajectory. Villa, after their cup defeat, coming into this game needing a win. It's Villa 2.3, United 3.15. The draw is 3.9. Both teams to score, trying its best to get to Spurs Brighton levels. 1.5 currently. The Asian handicap line sees United get plus 1/4 of a goal at 197. The goal line here, 3.5, but unders is 162. Adrian, I touched on the cup defeat to Chelsea. I was out and about last night, and I came home, and the scoreline was 3-0 Chelsea with about 70 minutes gone, and I just couldn't believe it. So that result came to me as a shock. What was your take on the game and Villa going into this game?
I saw it on the WhatsApp. I saw the last time you'd logged on. You had a late night last night, Mr. Hussey. I like it. Without stitching you up too much. I think goals. A little bit like Mark here with the Spurs game. I just think it does scream goals. Obviously, I don't think anyone saw Chelsea winning that one, by the way, 3-1, and some good goals in there, and very unexpected. But it does show that Villa have a little bit of vulnerability about them now, and we saw that when Newcastle went there and scored 3 as well, didn't we? So they can get caught, can't they? They can get caught. It's not a perfect defense. Tactically, they take risks as well. Aston Villa. It's a high-scoring ground. It's a high-scoring stadium. in the Premier League this season, Villa Park. 3.73 goals per game. 73% of their matches at Villa Park have seen over 3.5 goals. So if you blind back those, you'll be well in the profit. So yeah, that is one area to look at. And the other one that really more appeals to me is United's front three. I've just written a piece on them, sort of looking at their form, and this is obviously Højlund and Garnacho and Rashford on fire at the moment, absolutely on fire. You know, since they came back against Villa from 2-0 down on Boxing Day, they've been electric, all of them. Between those three players in the last 5 games, 11 goals have been scored and 5 assists have been produced. 16 direct goal involvements from 3 players in 5 games. So that tells you how they're clicking. And again, I'm going to talk about the styles. They're one of the quickest front threes in the division, aren't they? And they do want to run in behind Garnacho, Rashford, and Højlund. And Villa, they'll play their game. I don't see them changing. So from turnovers, from quick breakaways, Villa had better be switched on, because those three will look to get in behind. And that's what happened in that game at Old Trafford. I'm going to flip it around, you know, because I'm not backing Man United. Villa have goal threats of their own. They score plenty. And can you really trust, Man United? Gave up 22 shots against West Ham. Wolves had 16 shots against them, scored 3. Spurs had 16 shots against them, scored 2. Very good performance from Spurs that night. They conceded 12 goals, Man United, in 6 games against teams above them in the table. So I could absolutely see Villa scoring 1 or 2 goals here myself. So yeah, I'm going to go for over 3.5. To cut a long story short, it's a good price actually. I guess it doesn't always happen over 3.5 goals, but as I said, 73% strike rate at Villa Park. And we can get 2.44, I think, on over 3.5 goals, which has lured me in.
Okay, over 3.5 goals, 244. And just to cover myself, it was a match I was playing, Adrian, and Super Bowl week, Super Bowl content. You can check it out in your podcast feed. It came up late. But over 3.5 goals is 244. Mark O'Haire, take it away with your selection.
Yeah, just following similar lines. I'm on over 2.5 goals and both teams to score 1.9 here. I think is very backable. Would certainly agree with Adrian. I agree it's going to be hopefully high scoring, entertaining. Couldn't really back either team with confidence. Aston Villa are going through a real sticky patch at the minute. 5 points in 5 league games before playing against Sheffield United last weekend. And yeah, they absolutely battered them, but most teams are doing that so far this season. They were schooled at home by Newcastle in the last home game, stuttered and stumbled against Burnley and Sheffield United at Villa Park. So kind of Fortress Villa Park has kind of gone out the window, really, when you consider Chelsea ran amok there in midweek too. So, yeah, I mean, there's an opportunity here for Villa, obviously, because they did beat United at home last season 3-1. Were in a great position at Old Trafford in the reverse game before throwing it away, but just lost confidence in them in recent weeks. And yeah, we talked about United pre-Wolves and pre-West Ham, and I was pretty anti-Man United on both occasions, made to look a bit silly by the results in those matches. But again, I'm just not wholly impressed by what I saw in patches. I thought they were very, very good in both matches. But, against West Ham last weekend, they were second best for large periods of that particular fixture. I have to admit, when I saw the team sheet against Wolves, I was very concerned. It looked like United were kind of back to their best 11 with Martinez and Casemiro back in the side. But now Martinez is injured again, and that defence is going to look very wobbly. So I don't have any faith in them defensively, but I agree they've been very good fun to follow in forward areas. Ten Hag finally appears to have worked out that dropping Anthony is the right solution to get the best out of his front three. And that's great to see Rasmus Højlund scoring goals. 4 and a spin now, I think he scored in the Premier League. So, yeah, have faith in United going forward, have very much faith in Aston Villa going forward. Watkins, double figures for goals and assists. Leon Bailey's been brilliant as well, quite under the radar because Watkins is getting the headlines there. And you also got Diaby and Zaniolo to come off the bench too. So Villa are well stocked. United are going well going forward. no faith in Villa defensively right now, and United are still allowing the 4th most shots in the Premier League, which is pretty embarrassing for a side chasing top 4. So, yeah, as Adrian says, 8 of 11 Villa home games have featured 4 goals or more. 4 of United's last 5 have seen overs and BTTS, and those 5 fixtures have seen 22 goals in total. So, yeah, looking forward to this one. Goals for both teams, and hopefully 3 or more.
Yeah, can see a lot of goals in this one. Might lean slight over 3.5 with the bigger price at Adrian Clarke 244, but definitely check out the goals markets there. Markets with over 2.5 and both teams to score at 1.9. Insights.matchbook.com. Full recap of all the selections. Adrian, 2 selections in the EFL, so take it away here.
Just a quick one. I'm at the game on Friday night. Hopefully it'll be on. I think there's a lot of snow up there today, but it should wash away by Friday night. Sheffield Wednesday against Birmingham. Big game at the bottom of the Championship. And I want to side with Birmingham here. Sheffield Wednesday have had a shocker of a week. They 2 collapses basically in the space of a few days. They let in 3 goals in 8 minutes in the FA Cup at Coventry. And that was following a hot on the heels of letting in 4 goals in 12 pretty shameful minutes at Huddersfield. You know, their relegation rivals. They allowed themselves to get battered towards the end of that game. It was a real crumble, which I think shows you how brittle they are, you know, psychologically in this battle to stay in the 2nd tier. And I do think that is going to psychologically hurt them ahead of this game. They have already lost 7 of 15 matches at Hillsborough this season in the league as well. In the last 4 games at home, they've taken 4 points from a possible 12. So they're not coming into this one in any great form at all. Birmingham's results haven't been amazing, but there is a feel-good factor there with Tony Mowbray. Performance levels have shot up big time. You know, there was a good draw against Swansea, excellent win at Stoke, and they're pretty unlucky to lose at West Bromwich Albion 1-0 last time out. They also played very well in the Cup at Leicester before losing. So I think that they've got something going under Mowbray, and I think that they have more than enough talent to hurt Sheffield Wednesday in this game. Stansfield up front's doing great. You've got Dembele, Miyoshi, Pritchard, Bakuna, guys like this, all carry a goal threat. And here's a stat. It's a really interesting one for a team that's just hovering outside the relegation zone. Birmingham's record versus the bottom half this season in the Championship is 1-6, drawn 7, lost 2. Really, really strong against the lesser lights in the Championship, and Sheffield Wednesday are absolutely a lesser light. So I want to go with Birmingham plus a 1/4 goal here. So it needs Sheffield Wednesday to win the game for us to lose our bet, and you can get that at around 1.9. I think Birmingham are more than good enough to win this game, and potentially at worst draw it. So yeah, I'm on the blue side.
Okay, that's Birmingham plus 1/4 goal, 1.9. Second selection, high flying Hull City entertains Swansea at home, and you like both teams to score, feeling it's backable.
I do, yeah. I think it's backable at 1.81 for both teams to score. Very much numbers based here. Hull have scored in 25 of 29 games this season. Almost always get at least one in. Swansea have scored in 25 of 30 games. So, you know, these are 2 teams that are used to scoring. They want to play on the front foot. They've got attacking talents. Philogene, a player I really like, used to be at Villa. He's at Hull. He's fit again now for Hull and makes them a little bit more potent. But Swansea are super attacking. I mean, they've got the new manager in from Notts County, and they've struggled at the back, but they are scoring goals. Flip it around to the other end of the pitch. Swansea, 5 clean sheets from 30 games. Not very many of those. Only 2 clean sheets on the road. Hull have conceded in 10 of 15 home games. So it's not as if they're watertight on their own patch either. They've only got 8 clean sheets over the course of the season as well. So yeah, very much based on the numbers. These are 2 teams that very rarely keep a clean sheet and very rarely fail to score. So I'm backing them to at least nab 1 apiece at the KCOM.
Okay, we have Birmingham plus 1/4 goal, 1.9, and Hull versus Swansea, both teams to score 181. Mark O'Haire, you have a very interesting selection coming up here, so take it away and make the case.
Very interesting. I'm not sure it is, to be honest. But it's the early kickoff in the Eredivisie on Sunday morning, actually. Go Ahead Eagles taking on Pek Zwolle. There's 4 points between these two teams. They're both kind of in a race for European qualification, well clear of relegation danger. And because of their position, I expect both teams to go at it, really, and play to their strengths, which is going forward and scoring goals and hopefully combining for a goal-heavy game here. So I'm going to back over 2.5 goals and both teams to score at 1.9. Just starting with BTTS, my model makes it 1.5. The market makes it more closer to 1.6. So already I think we're onto something here. If you look at the goal line, it's set at a straight 3.0. If you backed overs, you'd require 4 or more goals to get a payout there, with 3 just returning a push. So here already we're onto something, knowing that 3 goals could easily be a winner for us, with both teams obliging and hopefully 3 or more landing. So it's going to be pretty dull to listen to, I think, but just raw numbers first, because things are quite overwhelmingly in our favour here. But Go Ahead Eagles have seen overs in 8 of 10 at home, over 3.5 in 7 of those, scoring at least twice in 7 of 10 at home, and conceding twice or more in 5 of 10 at home. In Zwolle's 10 away games, overs has landed in 8, over 3.5 in 6. They scored in 9 of those, and they scored twice more in 6 of those 10. But they've also conceded twice or more in 6 of their 10 away from home. So, the raw numbers say both sides contribute, and often contribute a couple of goals at both ends. And I think the underlying data certainly agrees with that, because go-ahead games are averaging 3.48 expected goals at home, as well as away days, 3.26 expected goals away. So, I think everything's in our favour here to suggest that this game should be goal-heavy, high-scoring and entertaining. So I'll back both teams to score and overs.
Over 2.5 and both teams to score 1.9. The interesting selection I was looking ahead to, Mark, is your best long shot. It's the Scottish Cup, which is what I was a bit interested about. I skipped ahead. Best long shots record. We go through it every week, but 10 wins, 36 defeats in the long shots record. Doesn't sound the best, but you will be up over £300 for a £20 level stake on each of the guys' selections. Mark, take it away with this one in the Scottish Cup 5th round.
Yeah, going to back Championship side Partick Thistle to win and see both teams to score in their cup game against Livingston of the Scottish Premiership this weekend, because Partick are around 3.1 for the straight win in this game, and that to me is undervaluing them and or overvaluing Livingston. So Livingston are rock bottom of the Scottish Premiership. They have been absolutely awful since October's international break. 15 league games. They've picked up 3 points, 3 draws, 12 defeats. They've failed to score in 10 of those, and they've conceded 2 goals or more on 10 occasions as well. Their only success since October's international break came in the Scottish Cup. And interestingly, it came at home to second-placed Wraith Rovers of the Championship. Now, Livingston went off at 2.4 that day, which suggests that the market made Wraith slightly the better side of the two teams, despite being in the second tier. But what's interesting is Livingston were 2.4 at home to second-placed Wraith. They are now 2.3 favourites away at third-placed Partick, who are just 1 place below Wraith Rovers and very, very capable at Firhill, their home stadium. So if you look at that game against Wraith, I know it's just a very small sample of one game, but they fell behind inside the 5th minute. So game state was already in their favour for a good old 80 minutes of this game. They had to turn it around to win 2-1, but they're outshot. They conceded more shots on target and more corners in that game, as I say, despite the game state being in their favour. So, yeah, they were kind of humbled again in midweek in the Scottish Premiership, and going away to Kilmarnock and conceding a very late goal on a Wednesday night before a quick turnaround against a slippery sort of Partick team on a Saturday afternoon. Partick have had a full week to rest, prepare, and look at this game. And this is the same Partick side who did go away to Ross County, another Premiership struggler, and win 3-0 in the last round. So if they can do that to Ross County, then I have absolutely no problems with them doing something similar to Livingston at a nice price, but obviously 3.1 falls below our threshold. Include both teams to score, and we get up to 6.0. And that's my selection.
Okay, maybe you want to have Partick on side, but yeah, if you do want to include the both teams to score and the long shot, 6.0 currently on Matchbook. Adrian Clarke, one of my favourite teams this season has been Bournemouth, and seeing their rise. Nothing to do with having Solanke top goal scorer, or indeed in my FPL team throughout the season, but they've been a joy to watch, haven't they?
It's so much better. Yeah, I mean, at one point you just thought he was gone, Iraola. Just wasn't working. But then once it did click into place, it's been great, and they're terrific to watch. And And I don't think that the recent results have maybe been a fair reflection of how they've played. I thought they played great at West Ham and only drew the game, played really well against Spurs, but ended up on the wrong end of a 3-1. They weren't the best, I think, last time out at home to Forest. So maybe I'm expecting a reaction. So I'm looking at Fulham against Bournemouth, and I want to get Bournemouth on side. And I think they can win 2-0. That's where I'm coming from here. Bournemouth and both teams to score no, or Bournemouth to win 2-0. Fulham have blanked in 43% of their matches this season. That's more than any other team in the Premier League. We know about their issues up front. Yeah, they brought in Breuer up front on loan, haven't they? But he alone can't transform them. I'd suggest he might do okay in this game. We'll have to wait and see. But they've struggled to convert chances. They've blanked in 5 home games as well. And I just think Bournemouth, in the here and now, are a better team than Fulham. They're playing well. They're scoring goals. They're creating a lot of chances. Solanke, as you said, is in great nick. Semenyo, Sinistera, Cliver, all been making good contributions. And yeah, I think that they're more than good enough to go to Craven Cottage and get a result. Bournemouth did win, remember, at Forest. They won at Manchester United. They won at Palace. They won at Sheffield United as well. So, winning away from the South Coast isn't completely alien to them. And I believe they're good enough. They did beat Fulham 3-0, incidentally, on Boxing Day, I think it was. So certainly around the Christmas time, they beat them by 3-0. Fulham, really, apart from that game against Arsenal, where they deservedly won, really brought their A game. They've not really been that good of late. Not that impressed with them at all. And yeah, I think that Bournemouth can win this 1-0, 2-0, maybe even 3-0, like they did at Manchester United. It's a long shot for a reason, but I think that the price is okay.
Yeah, it is indeed 6.2 versus all the sportsbook currently having that in and around 5.5. So definitely a bit of juice on that price on the Matchbook betting exchange. We'll go to best bets here, and Adrian, might stick back to you here. On the face of Wrexham, the wheels have come off. They've lost 3 in a row, 2 in the league. You were expecting to get back on track here, and quite a backable price.
Yeah, I think the recent performances have maybe influenced the market a little bit, and they think, maybe people are wishful thinking that the wheels have come off at Wrexham. Look, one of the games was Blackburn in the Cup, which they probably weren't expected to win anyway. And they ran into a Salford team with a new manager last time out. So yeah, look, every team has a little bit of a blip or a wobble, and I think that is Wrexham's. The bottom line is, we're talking about the team here with the best home record in League Two by far in Wrexham. They've won 11, they've drawn 2, they've lost 1. Their goal difference at home is plus 22. They've scored 43 at home. Mark's backed them loads of times to score at least 2 goals. So, this is a team that love it in front of their own fans. They've scored 3 or more goals in 8 home games, Wrexham. They've always scored at least 2 in their home games. So this is a fortress, okay? And they're managed by Phil Parkinson, who is, of course, one of Bradford City's most famous managers. So he'll be determined, I'm sure, to get one over on his former side, who are struggling massively at the moment. They're having a torrid time. Bradford are 18th in League Two. It's been a disaster. They've got good players. Andy Cook, Jake Young, who they loaned out to Swindon. He's scoring all those goals. They brought him back. He's not scoring for them either. So it's not been good. They're languishing. Only 4 teams have scored fewer goals than Bradford in League Two this season, which doesn't bode well when you're up against a team that always scores at least 2 on their own patch. And they've lost 8 of 16 away games. So I can't believe Wrexham are 1.94 here. I would have thought they'd have been 1.6 or lower, really. So that's why it's my best bet.
Okay, 194, and yeah, definitely a bit of juice if you can forgive those couple of defeats, as Adrian touched on there. Final selection, Mark. Serie A, your best bet. This was included on Matchbook Insights. So why are Bologna a good price to win at the weekend?
Yeah, I just think they're being underrated again. Bologna, sort of little Bologna, up there in the top 4 battle, just 3 points off the Champions League qualification places. They've been there all season, really. Thiago Motta's doing a a great job to get the Rosso Blue up there competing with the big boys in Italy, so much so that he's being linked with the Barcelona job, and understandable really. If you look at their home record so far this season, they were beaten by Milan on the opening weekend of the campaign, but since then they've posted 8 wins and 2 draws in the following 10 fixtures in front of their own supporters. They conceded just 5 goals in those 10 home games as well, 2 of which came last weekend when they beat Sassuolo quite comfortably 4-2 at home. So yeah, they're going very, very well. They're a solid unit, don't give much away, but going forward, the likes of Joshua Zirkzee is having a great campaign. He's really found a home at Bologna after a difficult spell at Bayern. So yeah, I fancy them to win against most bottom half opponents, but especially Lecce, who are the visitors on Sunday. Lecce still without a win away from home, 5 draws and 6 defeats. But what's interesting is if you look at their record at top 11 teams, that's where all 6 defeats have come in just 7 away games. So they tend to toil when stepping up in class. I've got them 3rd bottom on away expected points this season. They've only scored 9 goals away from home all season anyhow. They've only kept 2 clean sheets across all venues, home and away. So if you're conceding regular goals and you're struggling for goals away from home, Bologna just aren't the type of team you want to come up against, because they're strong, they're process driven. They always tend to score a couple themselves, but give very little away too. And recent form is also against Lecce. They've lost 5 of the last 7 across all venues. And I just think Bologna will be too savvy, too smart, and too strong. So 4-5, 1.8 on the home win for Bologna.
Okay, for what it's worth, those were 2 strong cases on the best bets. My thanks to Mark O'Haire and Adrian Clarke. The Champions League comes thick and fast next week, so we'll be back with fixtures. It is next week, Mark. I am correct there, am I? Yes.
Yep.
Yes, it is indeed. So yeah, that's staying in.
That's
No,
a late
thanks,
night.
Mark and Adrian.
Late night.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Miguel Delaney will be back with us to join the Champions League, as Adrian alluded to there. It was a late night last time. We have a lot of Super Bowl content for you, both up on a prop show with Unabated, as well as a regular NFL podcast. We have a lot of Cheltenham podcasts ahead of the Cheltenham Festival in less than 5 weeks' time. And of course, we have a regular horse racing podcast. So do check all that. If having a bet on the Matchup Betting Exchange, check out all our markets. You will be invariably getting best price. Other than that, we'll chat to you on Monday. Enjoy the weekend sport. Bye-bye.